What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So 2 days ago, a massive domino in the 2025 free agency class fell as Igor Shesterkin signed the highest AAV deal ever by a goaltender, 8 years, $11.5 million. But there's still a lot of studs that are set to become, whether it's unrestricted or restricted free agents this summer. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to run through 16 of the top guys and predict what I think their contract is going to be. Guys like Mikko Rantanen, John Tavares, Evan Bouchard, Mitch Marner. We're going to run through it now because, yes, some guys playing fantastic. They've definitely upped the amount of money they're going to get. One that comes to mind that we're going to talk about, Sam Bennett. Near point per game right now, like 40 goal pace. Some other guys have maybe shat the bed relative to what we expected, like a Wyatt Johnston. Did they lose a ton of money? Are they going to get bridged instead of long-term deals now? We got a lot to talk about. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. And up first, probably the top guy now, the best unrestricted free agent, Mikko Rantanen. I'm going to go 8 years, $12.9 million. And I know what you guys are screaming. That's more than Nathan MacKinnon. Nathan MacKinnon only makes $12.6 million. He's not as good as Nathan MacKinnon. And apparently that's what Colorado's pitch is right now, that they have this internal cap space of Nathan MacKinnon. If they want to re-sign a guy like Mikko Rantanen, they're going to have to go above that internal cap space, considering the fact, one, Nathan MacKinnon's deal is just an amazing deal. It's a straight-up amazing deal. Much like Connor McDavid's $12.5 million deal has been awesome. His deal, even in the moment, we thought that's a very, very good value. There's going to be, once the salary cap goes up, people are going to pass that, and Nathan MacKinnon's still going to be a top 3 player in the entire NHL. Also, relative to their deals, MacKinnon kicked in 2 years before Rantanen's will kick in. Since then, we're going to have an $8 to $9 million salary cap increase, so the percentage of the cap would be lower. And also, it's just not the end of the world if they go north of Nathan MacKinnon. Cale Makar's probably going to go north of Mikko Rantanen when he's due for another 2 years. The salary cap is continuing to rise, and Rantanen, rightfully so, thinks that he can get $13.5, $14 million from other teams on the open market. I don't think that he ends up leaving because, again, he probably loves playing in Colorado, loves playing with MacKinnon, loves playing with Makar, and you could also get the 8th year compared to free agency. He could go to Utah and get $14 million, but then he doesn't get that last year on his contract. So I think that he's going to stay with the Colorado Avalanche. There's maybe an argument that you could use that money elsewhere to upgrade in net and maybe some more forward depth, defense depth. But at the end of the day, if it's $12.9 million and you have MacKinnon and Rantanen locked up in their primes the next 3 to 5 years at $25.5 million, that's awesome value. That is not an overpayment. I get that maybe you don't want that much money tied up in 2 players, but when we're talking about the second best player in the entire NHL and another top 10 to 15 player, the problem is when it's like the Toronto Maple Leafs, when you're giving John Tavares part of your core $11 million, who we're going to get to, who still is a very good player. It's when you have bad contracts, maybe below average contracts, but Mikko Rantanen is a $13-ish million player, probably for the next 4 to 5 years. Yes, maybe at the end of that deal, might not be that good of a deal. Guess what? Colorado has only like 5 more years probably left in their window, given the ages of MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Dantes. So you pay them, you lock them up. Mikko Rantanen is worth 12.9. And again, MacKinnon's deal just is one of the best deals in the entire NHL. He is a $15 to $16 million player. So Mikko Rantanen's camp is just going to be like, y'all got lucky with Nathan MacKinnon. You guys better pay up because I want to be in Colorado, and I think he will stay in Colorado. Next up, that was probably the longest we're going to spend on a singular player. Brad Marchand, I'm going to go with 2 years, $6 million. He has kind of been on a bit of a decline recently. Still a very good player, but when looking at his last 3 seasons, it has been especially in terms of offensive production, still a very solid 65 to 70 point guy, but he is 36 years old. So I think 2 years at $6 million, I can't really see Brad Marchand going anywhere just because he's won a Stanley Cup. He's now the captain of the Boston Bruins. Why would he leave? I'm very confident, even though there hasn't been a deal yet, there is going to be a deal. And yeah, I think Boston definitely should not let this guy walk, considering they already massively overpaid a forward this most recent offseason in Lindholm. They clearly might not have the best evaluation in terms of these forwards. Lock up Brad Marchand, 2 years, $6 million. John Tavares, 3 years, $6.5 million. Goes from being a very overpaid player to being kind of a steal. If he gets $6.5 million next season, that would be very good value for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's 34 years old. This year, he has 12 goals, 11 assists, 23 points in 26 games. He's returned to his form in prior seasons of being around the point per game guy. Last year was a little bit of a down year, but also his on-ice shooting, just like his own shooting and his teammates, was just so below average and just bad compared to prior seasons. So he's naturally bouncing back. $6.5 million, maybe in that final year of the deal, might not be fantastic when he's 36, 37 years old, but that would be very good value for the first 2 years. For John Tavares, Noah Dobson going from an ex-Islander to a current Islander. I'm going to go 8 years, $8.7 million. Now, this year, he ain't playing like an $8.7 million defenseman, but the track record is there for a guy like Noah Dobson. 2022, 51 points, 2023, 49. Then he has 70 last season. This year, only 13 points in 28 games, but I still think when looking at the deals that Brock Faber got after just one season, when looking at the deals that Moritz Seider signed, I still think that he's probably going to command around eight-ish, mid-eights, mid to high $8 million. Before the season, you were thinking maybe like 9.5. I think considering the bad play, the underlying numbers have actually been very good, but based on what I'm watching, I'm not that impressed. He's still going to get paid a lot because he is still a very, very good offensive talent, but no longer like top 6 money in the entire NHL for a defenseman. So I think 8.7 is about fair for Noah Dobson. As of right now, Mikael Granlund, this is an interesting one. I think he might hit the open market considering he might get traded at the deadline. And I think this might be a situation similarly to like a Steven Stamkos or Jonathan Marchand, where he signed some deal that might be good for the first couple of seasons, but then looks ass at the end. So I'm going to go with the 5-year deal at $6.25 million. He has 30 points in 28 games right now, 60 points in 69 games. So yeah, I think maybe like an older team might scoop him and just be like, the first 2 years at $6.25 million is going to be very good value, and we're going to stink in 4 to 5 years from now. So who really cares? Like the Nashville Predators. So yeah, I think a team will definitely give Granlund a longer-term deal if he's open to that with a solid cap hit. So 5 years, $6.25 million. Matt Duchene, I'm going to go with like 2 years, $5 million with Dallas. Considering this guy had 65 points last year and signed yet again in Dallas for only $3 million. Clearly he loves Dallas. I think he's going to stay with Dallas. And yeah, he gets a little bit of a pay bump considering the fact that he has 28 points in 26 games right now. He should get more money. He would get more money if he just like opened himself up. But apparently this guy like Joe Pavelski just loves Dallas, going to stay in Dallas. Jim Neal's somehow going to get it done at an extreme discount. Nikolai Ehlers, 8 years, $8 million. I think this would be a great deal for the Winnipeg Jets if they were able to sign him to it. We haven't really heard much on the Ehlers front. This offseason, you heard that he wasn't that open to an extension, that trade talks were happening. They ended up keeping him. At this point, they're not going to trade him at the trade deadline. He's one of their best players. I think he ends up re-signing. I think that 8th year is very appealing to a guy like Ehlers. If he tested the open market, he could probably get like 8.5, maybe even sniffing $9 million because he is such a good player. When looking at it under Rick Bowness just did not play this guy that much. He played only like 15 minutes a night last year. This year, he has 9 goals, 16 assists for 25 points in 24 games. So yeah, I think an 8x8, if he stays in Winnipeg, comes below a guy like Mark Scheifele that's been there for longer. But in my opinion, he's just as good as Mark Scheifele. So this would be a great deal. Still only 28 years old. That'd be awesome for the Winnipeg Jets. Claude Giroux, 2-year deal at $5.25 million. Not sure if it's going to be with the Ottawa Senators, but yeah, he's still, next year he will be 37 years old, but he can still be a very effective second liner on an actual playoff team. His production has kind of slipped in the last 3 years, or every single year with Ottawa, the last 2 years, now 3rd year, but he's still a very good player. To $5.25 million. Maybe he takes even a bigger discount to go to some kind of contender because this is a guy like, unlike Brad Marchand, who has one. Maybe Giroux's going to cup chase, take a very cheap deal. But if it is with Ottawa, if he still cares about getting the bottom line, 2 years, 5.25 seems pretty fair for Claude Giroux. Next up, we got Brock Besser. Brock Besser, I am going to go with 8 years, $8.25 million. And yes, again, going back to Nathan MacKinnon, this is more than JT Miller. This is more than Quinn Hughes. But guess what? Those guys signed deals prior. JT Miller's deal is awesome. Quinn Hughes' deal is awesome. You got to pay the market rate for a guy like Brock Besser that's only 26 or 27 years old. Last year scored 40 goals, 73 points. And this year he's proving that was no fluke. 7 goals, or at least his bounce back was no fluke because obviously starting out in his career, he was, again, an elite guy. But yeah, 7 goals, 9 assists, 16 points in 18 games. He's an elite first liner. Elite first liners get around $8-ish million. Still decently young. Lock him up. He's part of the core. 8.25. Seems about right for a guy of Brock Besser's caliber. Wyatt Johnston, 2 years, $6.5 million. I think he's lost some money. It would not surprise me if he gets bridged. He started off really brutal, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points in his first 17 games. Has bounced back his last 9, having 9 points in his last 9. But yeah, if he only goes for around like 60, 65 points, considering last year he had 32 goals, 33 assists, 65 points. If I was him, I'd probably take a bridge, bounce back, and then get your payday of 8 years, $10-ish million if he gets back on that trajectory that we thought that he was possible, or at least over $9 million. So yeah, and if you're the Dallas Stars, Are you going to commit that much to this guy in terms of serious AAV and serious term? They did something similar with Thomas Harley. We didn't really have that much of a down year, but after having 47 points last year, they somehow got him to sign a 2-year deal at $4 million. So yeah, Dallas seems to get these insanely cheap bridge deals, and I wouldn't be surprised if Wyatt Johnston's the same. So I'm going with 2 years at 6.5. Still healthy second line, very good second liner money. And he has potential, again, if he gets back on track, to be an elite first liner, maybe the number 1 center in the future for the Dallas Stars. Evan Bouchard, I'm going to go with 8 years at $10 million. I know it's going to sound like a lot. And he did have a really rough start. I thought he was losing a lot of money. He had 1 point in his first 6 games, has found his game yet again, his offensive game, 19 points in 21 games. I think he's going to go for over 70 points. And when you have that track record of having 81 points last year and another 70-point season, and when you have been so productive in the playoffs like a guy like Evan Bouchard, you're going to get paid a serious amount. He had 32 points in 25 games last year. Again, do I think that he's a top 5 defenseman like he would be getting paid after this deal? No, but he's 24, 25 years old, and he'd still be well below a guy like Rasmus Dahlin that's making $11 million. And at $9 or $10 million, you still have guys like Fox making 9.5, McAvoy making 9.5, Werenski makes 9.6, and those guys signed their deals years ago. $10 million would be about the going rate for Evan Bouchard. If they hold off on this and he dominates the playoffs again, it might end up being 10.5. It might end up being $11 million. So some people might think I'm crazy for $10 million. I think that's about fair for Evan Bouchard, a legit offensive number 1 defenseman that has been productive as him. I know there's criticism that it's going to be about McDavid, Dresser, Marchand. No, he's objectively a good player. So I think $10 million is fair. Jacob Chychrun, 8 years, $8 million, or 7 years, $8 million if he does hit the open market. He's proved to be a very good top pairing defenseman. You look at a guy like a comparable like Philip Hronik that's the same age that got 7.25 a year later. I think that's about fair for Jacob Chychrun, around $8 million, maybe 7.75. But he's been awesome for the Washington Capitals this year. He has 8 goals and 8 assists for 16 points in 22 games right now. Flourished with John Carlson. He's been fluctuating throughout their lineup. But yeah, he's just been a very efficient top pair defenseman. That is what he is at this point. He was basically number 1 over in Arizona, and I think someone's going to, whether it's on the open market or whether the Capitals have to pay him a decent amount, I think he's definitely going north of $7 million, but I'm going to go with 8 years, $8 million. So Luke Hughes, I'll go with 2 years, $5.5 million. I think a bridge deal makes some sense here with Luke Hughes. For Luke Hughes, you're not quite the number 1 defenseman with Dougie Hamilton, so if you were offered an 8-year deal, what would it be like? $7 million? I don't think it'd be like 7.5, 8. And also the New Jersey just doesn't have that much cap space this offseason to potentially offer him. So if I was Luke Hughes, I would hold off, and you're still getting $5.5 million. You're not getting shafted in this scenario. I would hold off on my mega deal. And then hopefully during the 2026-2027 season, Dougie Hamilton will be 33, 34. You'll assume that role as that number 1 defenseman. And then if you kill it in that, you get your 8-year 9, 10, 10.5, 11 maybe even. No, let's say it's that high. But yeah, you cash in instead of like what we saw Jack and Quinn do, kind of just take a deal, especially Jack's case, before the breakout, and then you're thinking, damn, I could be getting paid another $3 to $4 million easy right now compared to what I did. So I think he's probably going to hold off, and it makes sense for the New Jersey Devils too, considering after the summer of 2027, they have the Brendan Dillon and especially the Andre Palat deals coming up. That's around $10 million of cap space. So then they can offer Luke Hughes this massive deal. So I think a bridge makes sense for both parties here, especially 2 years, $5.5 million. That's great value for the New Jersey Devils if Luke Hughes continues to trend the way that he is. He's playing awesome right now. And I think for Luke Hughes, you look at that mega deal in the summer of 2027 after the cap rises even more, and then the Devils have serious cap, and you're the number 1 defenseman. Brock Nelson, I'm going to go 5 years at $7 million. If he hits the open market, I think that's kind of what the deal would be. With the New York Islanders, it wouldn't shock me if Lou does some like 6-7 year deal, even though Brock Nelson's going to be like 34 next October. But yeah, Brock Nelson has been in a second line role. I keep on reciting these stats whenever I talk about him. 37 goal, 33 assists, 70-point pace as a number 2 center on the New York Islanders. Arguably the best center on the Islanders, but he plays in the second line. He's awesome. Somebody will pay him a shit ton, even though he is 33 years old, whether that's with the Islanders, whether that's on the open market, to be their second line center. He's a great player. You look at a guy like Alex Kilhorn that got 4 years, $6.25 million. You know, Brock Nelson can get 5 years at $7 million. Come on, let's be serious. Brock Nelson is an absolute stud. Sam Bennett, 7 years, $8.25 million. Yes, you might think I'm absolutely crazy for this, but I don't. First off, I say 7 years because I think he might be hitting the open market. And I think he will get paid a shit ton. You look at a guy like Lindholm, who had a significantly worse contract year than a guy like Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett right now, who has 13 goals, 13 assists, 26 points in 27 games after winning the Stanley Cup, after making the Stanley Cup final in 2023, being a massive piece to this team. Somebody will shell out an absolute bag for Sam Bennett. I have no doubts about this, considering he is that physical two-way center that teams covet come playoff time, whether it's with Florida. If it's with Florida, it might be like an 8-year deal at 7.75. And if you're Bennett, maybe you just want to cash the hell in, considering the fact you did win a Stanley Cup, go back up to Canada. But yeah, I think Sam Bennett's going to get a metric shit ton of money, especially considering Elias Lindholm, who was far worse in the contract year than Sam Bennett. It makes some sense. $8.25 million. I know that sounds crazy. Caps rise. Get used to it. Mitch Marner, 8 years, $12.4 million. Comes just below the McDavid 12.5. But yeah, he's not taking a discount, especially with the way that he's playing right now. He's definitely getting more than William Nylander. He has 38 points in 27 games. When Matthews went down, he really stepped up. So I think he's going to get a massive bag from the Toronto Maple Leafs. You look at it, he's going to be, 27 years old? So still in his prime, still has another 4 to 5 years, hopefully in his prime. $12.4 million. It makes sense for a guy that's around the 100-point Selke level guy, top 20-ish player in the entire NHL. Yes, he's kind of a ghost come playoff time, but you get to the playoffs to begin with by getting guys like Mitch Marner, having guys like Mitch Marner on your team. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are probably not going to have the balls to potentially trade him. Theoretically, they should trade him right now. His stock has not been this high in a while, but if they end up signing him, yeah, I think it's going to be around low to mid $12 million. I think that's a safe bet, considering he has that track record. If William Nylander got 11.5 million a year later, Marner I think is getting at least 12. So just let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? What do you think about all these? Which ones am I absolutely crazy on in terms of term and AAV? And I'll be seeing you in the next one.